Thursday. My name is Rainer. This is Rainier Books. Time for another video because this is the long list week. There's so many long lists and short lists published this week. Last week we had the Women's Prize. We had the Giller Prize long list from Canada. This week we have the short list from the Booker Prize. We have all the long lists from the National Book Award in the United States. We got the long list from the Young Adult section yesterday, and today we got the long list from the International National Book Award, the novels and translation of 2021. And I want to talk about them. I want to read them with you, so to speak, and find out which one or two of them are most interesting to me, and maybe to you too. So let's do this. I have never in my life sort of achieved the goal of reading a complete long list of a prize. So I won't have that goal either today for the National Book Award of 2021 in translation. Maybe tomorrow. That's also another song that I could sing, but I won't do it. But maybe tomorrow when the long list is published, I'm going to take a look at that and try to dug in deep into the National Book Award long list, because there's so much of the Booker Prize and there's so little about the National Book Award, which actually has a great bunch of literature already last year when we discovered Charles Yu, for example, and his wonderful novel Interior Chinatown, the winner, and when we discovered The Great Offshore Grounds by Vanessa Veselka. My voice is okay, so let's do this. Let's look at the 10 nominees or the long list for the novels in translation. Number 1 is Waiting for the Waters to Rise by Maryse Condé. She's probably the oldest contender in the whole year of most of the literary awards. She's 84 years old. And this is translated from the French by Richard Philcox. Babacar is a doctor living alone with only the memories of his childhood in Mali. In his dreams, he receives visits from his blue-eyed mother and his ex-lover Azelia, both now gone, as are the hopes and aspirations he's carried with him since his arrival in Guadeloupe. Until one day the child Aneesa comes into his life, forcing him to abandon his solitude. Aneesa's Haitian mother died in childbirth, leaving her daughter destitute. Now Babacar is all she has, and he wants to offer this little girl a future. Together they fly to Haiti, a beautiful, mysterious island plagued by violence, government, corruption, and rebellion. Once there, Babacar and his two friends, the Haitian Movar and the Palestinian Fouad, 3 different identities looking for a more compassionate world, begin a desperate search for Aneesa's family. That sounds interesting to me. It's a story about a family. It's a story that spans over several countries. It's a story that plays in Haiti, country, an island, a part of the island. The other part is the Dominican Republic in the Caribbean, where I really want to learn more about. So this could be interesting to me. I'll take a note here. Second one, Winter in Sokcho by Elise Shua Dusapin, from the French, translated by Aneesa Abbas Higgins. It's winter in Sokcho, a tourist town on the border between South and North Korea. The cold slows everything down. Bodies are red and raw, the fish turn venomous, beyond the beach guns point out from the north watchtowers. A young French-Korean woman works as a receptionist in a tired guest house. One evening an unexpected guest arrives, a French cartoonist determined to find inspiration in this desolate landscape. The two form an uneasy relationship. When she agrees to accompany him on trips to discover an authentic Korea, they visit snowy mountaintops and dramatic waterfalls and cross into North Korea. But he takes no interest in the Sokcho she knows, the gaudy neon lights, the scars of war, the fish market where her mother works. As she's pulled into his vision and taken in by his drawings, she strikes upon a way to finally be seen. An exquisitely crafted debut which won the Prix Robert Walser, Winter in Sokcho is a novel about shared identities and divided selves, vision and blindness, intimacy and alienation. Elise Shua Dusapin's voice is distinctive and unmistakable. Very interested in reading this one. I mean, coming to Korea. Korea is a country that I absolutely have on my bucket list. One of the countries that I absolutely want to visit whenever I'm able to, and whenever it's possible again. And also the border region between South and North Korea sounds very interesting. And I also like the notion of a stranger coming into this world and discovering it, and the relationship sounds very interesting. Elisa Shua Dusapin, even more than Condé's novel. The next one I should be interested in because of the title, because it's called Peach Blossom Paradise, and I love peaches. It's my favorite fruit. I love Peach Cobbler, not since I read The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filia. But this novel, Peach Blossom Paradise, is by J. Fei, and it's translated from the Chinese by Canaan Morse. In 1898, reformist intellectuals in China persuaded the young emperor that it was time to transform his Cyrotic empire into a prosperous modern state. The 100 Days reform that followed was a monument of unprecedented change and extraordinary hope, brought to an abrupt end by a bloody military coup. Dashed expectations would contribute to the revolutionary turn that Chinese history would soon take, leading in time to the deaths of millions. Peach Blossom Paradise, set at the time of the reform, is the story of Sumi, the daughter of a wealthy landowner and former government official who falls prey to insanity and disappears. Days later, a man with a gold cicada in his pocket turns up at his estate and is inexplicably welcomed as a relative. This mysterious man has a great vision of reforging China as an egalitarian utopia, and he will stop at nothing to make it real. It is his own plans, however, which come to nothing, and his little sister Shumi is left to take up arms against the Confucian world in which women are chattel. Her campaign for change and her struggle to seize control over her own body are continually threatened by the violent whims of men who claim to be building paradise. Yeah, not really interested, I have to say. I put it aside. The Twilight Zone by Nona Fernandez, translated from the Chilean Spanish by Natasha Wimmer. It is 1984 in Chile, in the middle of the Pinochet dictatorship. A member of the secret police walks into the office of a dissident magazine and finds a reporter who records his testimony. The narrator of Nona Fernandez's mesmerizing and terrifying novel, The Twilight Zone, is a child when she first sees this man's face on the magazine's cover with the words, "I tortured people." His complicity in the worst crimes of the regime and his commitment to speaking about them haunt the narrator into her adulthood and career as a writer and documentarian. Like a Secret Service agent from the future, through extraordinary feats of the imagination, Fernandez follows the man who tortured people to places that archives can't reach, into the sinister twilight zone of history, where morning routines, a game of chess, Yuri Gagarin, and the eponymous TV show of the novel's title coexist with the brutal yet commonplace machinations of the regime. How do crimes vanish in plain sight? How does one resist a repressive regime? And who gets to shape the truths we live by and take for granted? The Twilight Zone pulls us into the dark portals of the past, reminding us that the work of the writer in the face of historical erasure is to imagine so deeply that these absences can be, for a time, spectacularly illuminated. Sounds really interesting. We have two short story collections on this list, and the first one is On the Origin of Species and Other Stories by Bo Young Kim, translated from the Korean by Joaquin Lee Comfort and Sora Kim Russell. Straddling science fiction, fantasy, and myth, the writings of award-winning author Bo Young Kim have garnered a cult following in South Korea, where she is widely acknowledged as a pioneer and inspiration. On the Origin of Species makes available for the first time in English some of Kim's most acclaimed stories, as well as an essay on science fiction. Her strikingly original, thought-provoking work teems with human and non-human beings, all of whom are striving to survive through evolution, whether biologically, technologically, or socially. Kim's literature of ideas offers some of the most rigorous and surprisingly poignant reflections on post-human existence being written today. I am not into science fiction, and that's why I'm not going to read these stories. But all of you who love science fiction, maybe you should. We have three novels, three books on the list of the Booker in translation. No, I sort of mixed it up, you know. We have three books on the National Book Award list that were also on the International Booker list earlier this year. One of them, comes now. When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut, translated from the Spanish by Adrian Nathan West. This is a book about the complicated links between scientific and mathematical discovery, madness and destruction. Fritz Haber, Alexander Grothendieck, Werner Heisenberg, Erwin Schrödinger, these are some of luminaries into whose troubled lives Benjamin Labatut thrusts the reader, showing us how they grappled with the most profound questions of existence. They have strokes of unparalleled genius, alienate friends and lovers, descent into isolation and insanity. Some of their discoveries reshape human life for the better, others pave the way to chaos and unimaginable suffering. The lines are never clear. No, not my kind of book. Sorry. The next short story collection is Rabbit Island, stories by Elvira Navarro, translated from the Spanish by Christina MacSweeney. These 11 stories from one of Granta's best young Spanish language novelists combine gritty surrealism with explosive interior meditations, traversing the fickle, often terrifying terrain between madness and freedom. In the title story, a so-called non-inventor brings snow-white rabbits to an island inhabited exclusively by birds, with horrific results. And Maitregus, a privileged man's understanding of the world is violently disrupted by the sight of a creature long thought extinct. Elsewhere in these stories that map dingy hotel rooms, shape-shifting cities and graveyards, an unsightly paw grows from a writer's earlobe, and a grandmother floats silently in the corner of the room. Well, I am not really into magical realism or surrealism, but 2 or 3 of these constellations sound really interesting, so I might grab it from the library and read 1 or 2 stories here. The next one is from Germany, Deutschland, where I'm from, and it's called An Inventory of Losses by Judith Schalansky. Judith Schalansky was also nominated for the Booker International this year. The translation comes from the German by Jackie Smith. And Schalansky has written a book about things that are gone forever, about things that we have lost, that humanity has lost. A Caspar David Friedrich painting, a species of tiger, a villa in Rome, a Greek love poem, an island in the Pacific. All these things are gone forever and we cannot recover them. It's a beautiful evocation of 12 specific treasures that have been lost to the world forever, and taken as a whole opens mesmerizing new vistas of how we can think about extinction and loss. This is Judith Schalansky, and the next title, the third title, that is has also a place on the long list of the International Booker, was or is In Memory of Memory by Maria Stepanova, translated from the Russian by Sasha Dugdale. With the death of her aunt, the narrator is left to sift through an apartment full of faded photographs, old postcards, letters, diaries, and heaps of souvenirs, a withered repository of a century of life in Russia. Carefully reassembled with calm, steady hands, these shards tell the story of how a seemingly ordinary Jewish family somehow managed to survive the myriad persecutions and repressions of the last century. Not really that super-duper trooper interesting to me, to be honest. Last book on the long list is Planet of Clay by Samar eYazbek, translated from the Arabic by Larry Price. Rima, a young girl from Damascus, longs to walk, to be free to follow the will of her feet, but instead she is perpetually constrained. Rima finds refuge in a fantasy world of colored crayons, secret planets, and the little prince reciting passages of the Quran like a mantra as everything and everyone around her is blown to bits. Since Rima hardly ever speaks, people think she's crazy, but she is no fool. The madness is in the battered city around her. One day, while taking a bus through Damascus, a soldier opens fire and her mother is killed. Rima, wounded, is taken to a military hospital before her brother leads her to the besieged area of Ghouta, where, between bombings, she writes her story. In Planet of Clay, Samar eYazbek offers a surreal depiction of the horrors taking place in Syria in vivid and poetic language and with a sharp eye for detail and beauty. I think this is seeing what has happened in Syria the last decade and what immense loss and pain and death and dismembering and post-traumatic stress this has caused and so many refugees. I think this is necessary to deal with this, and that's why I think that this book also sounds very interesting to me. So the most interesting books for me, from this list, the books that I might and probably will look for at the library, at least, are Waiting for the Waters to Rise by Maryse Condé, Winter in Sokcho by Elise Shua Dusapin. Was there anything else? These two at least. The Twilight Zone by Nona Fernandez about Chile sounds very interesting and scary also. And then I think that I take a few stories from Rabbit Island by Elvira Navarro. And finally I go for the last novel which is called Planet of Clay by Samar eYazbek. These are the ones that could interest me. What of these books draw your interest? Which could you read? Which have you read already, maybe? Please let me know in the comments down below. Another comment that I make spontaneously to that long list, I think it is a little bit of a pity that we see only major languages being represented in this long list. We see 3 novels translated from the Spanish, which I understand because Spanish is almost the second language. It's not almost the second language. It's definitely becoming the second language in the United States very, very soon, and it already is in a lot of areas. It's first language already, so it might be understandable that we have 3 novels translated from the Spanish. We have 2 novels translated from the French. We have 1 novel translated from German, all those big languages, and we have Chinese, of course, which is not a minor language either. We have Arabic, and then we have already 8 of 10 books, and we have 1 that was translated from the Korean, and there was a 10th one, actually, that was translated from, come on, Rainier, do it, tell me. We have French, Chinese, Russian. We had one in Russian, which is also one of the major languages of the world. So this is a little criticism that I do without having read the books, without having read all of the books that were translated from all over the world. But I think we should always look, because this is the progressive stack, right? We can't have 10 novels from Russia here. We can't have 10 novels from Spanish. There must be sort of an international field of contenders. And I would very much like to see some of other languages. I would love to see Portuguese or why not Croatian or Lithuanian or Japanese. There's no Japanese book here, which is also a big country with a big language, of course. So there are lots of, they focus on a few languages here, which is a little bit of a pity. But I'm sure that this list is great, and I'm sure that we can find something great to read there. So let me know and stick to the channel, because tomorrow it's time for another video. Tomorrow it's time for the National Book Award long list of American fiction. 10 titles are coming, and also 10 titles on the non-fiction list. 2 very interesting lists. I might end up making a video, of course, about the 10 fiction titles, but also about the titles of the non-fiction series, because non-fiction in America is a great genre, and there's great work done in America in the genre of non-fiction as well. If this is a genre, it's not a genre. Anyway, stay tuned, stay safe. That's the most important thing to do, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.